Hey friends, I hope you're doing well. I have been very fascinated with the life of Joseph of the Old Testament. I'm sure you have read the story, found it very interesting to read. Usually you go through the whole thing and it could be just great movie plot, of course. Many amazing lessons and of course so many sermons and Bible lessons been taught and preached out of that. But it is still fascinating story. Joseph becomes eventually a main leader of a major empire of that time. So he becomes one of the very influential leaders of the world at the time. But it doesn't start from that position. He starts as a shepherd, which gives us important teaching or wisdom in life that not everything starts big. And don't despise the small beginnings of life. Joseph, just a shepherd, and as a matter of fact, shepherding wasn't really a well sought after job. It was rather a lowly job. And Joseph, as we read from the first book of Moses or Genesis 37th chapter, was just an assistant or helper with his brothers. So it wasn't even that he was the actual job doer, but assistant, helping out. And that's where he starts. He also struggles with his family relations. Obviously, Jacob, his father, comes from a complicated family issues. He has 4 wives, Jacob has. We know that there's stuff going on there. First of all, he serves Laban for his wife, and at the night of his wedding gets deceived and ends up sleeping with the wrong woman, the woman he doesn't love. But they didn't have electricity at the time, and she couldn't see with a smartphone or switch on a flashlight, so he just in the darkness ends up sleeping with the wrong woman. Now he has to marry her and serve another 7 years to get the wife he actually loves, Rachel. And then Rachel doesn't get children, and then he ends up getting her servant, marries her as well, gets some children, and that actually turns out to be a fight between 2 sisters. It's about the value, not necessarily only children, but who feels right and better about themselves. And then Leah doesn't give birth any longer, so she also has to give her servant to Jacob, and it's a big messy situation. Joseph's brothers hate him because of favoritism of Jacob. Obviously it was there to a degree. The reasons might be justified, but we call to love all our children equally. Not all of them may be likable, or we don't like them equally, but we call to love them equally. So Joseph comes from this complicated family relations, and ends up becoming such a great person in history. And the first test you need to survive is your family. It's not your school bullies, it's not your work and, being equal with somebody else in sports or, different things you experience later in life. It's your family. If you can survive your family, and keep healthy ego and self-esteem, I mean by that, and acquire, some experience and understanding what life is all about, then you're ready to face your lion and bear and Goliath, so to speak. You're ready to face new challenges in life. And that's exactly what happens to Joseph. Now, sometimes we, of course, accuse our background. Oh, I wish I had had a better father, or my mother was so tough, or my brother was always getting more attention than I was, and I got mad and wanted to leave home as soon as I could. And I'm struggling today with issues in my life because of that. That may be true, that you actually had these real struggles, but the fact that you still carry them along today is a matter of choice, not a matter of circumstance. You are victim by choice, not by circumstance any longer. So Joseph then gets a prophetic dream from the Lord. Now we read it years later and understand this was prophetic. At the time, Joseph himself may not fully realize how prophetic it is, maybe have some kind of a sense, because he, however, was able to interpret dreams and had this gift, and this could have been started to manifest already at the time. But it's interesting. Everything starts to go wrong after he receives a prophetic dream from God. Now, you would think that if and when God gives you something divine, a new calling, a new direction in your ministry and life, and you have a word, you have a ministry, things would, pick up. Instead, everything starts to go wrong for Joseph. And one reason can be, of course, that the enemy is able to see your potential better than you are sometimes, and see that you are dangerous. And of course, Joseph's mission in life was to feed and keep his nation, his family alive, so a nation could form out of that, out of which eventually Messiah would come and save the world. And for that reason, we are here today and even discuss this whole thing. So it was significant. It was divine. It had a higher purpose. And no wonder the enemy wanted to kill that dream, that vision. And in order to kill that vision, he knew he needed to kill Joseph, which of course did not happen, as you know. But Joseph was dangerous to the enemy. So there is danger in you, and you carry something. That could be one reason why the enemy's been fighting you like this. Maybe from the start, even your childhood, the devil wanted to mess up your childhood, wanted to hurt you and make you believe that you were no use, no value. Maybe you went through some abuse, maybe sexual attacks, and things happened to you that should have never happened, that the devil wanted to just destroy the self-image, because he knew that you carry something special from God, which you would come to bring forth maybe in later years, like with Moses, with Joseph, with lots of Bible characters. They didn't they didn't start to do things until later in their life, but but they carried it. The enemy saw it. So it could be the reason the enemy wanted to, destroy Joseph right there. So, but your enemies are important still. And Joseph's brothers became, of course, opposers and enemies of Joseph. Your friends give you comfort, but your enemy makes you grow by giving you a challenge. So, if you only surround yourself with friends, you hardly ever grow, because friends don't give you challenges as enemies give and present. So your enemy is as important as your friend is. And so you need to discern who is your friends and who is your enemy. Now, how do you know who's who? Is usually when you start to share your life with people, your vision, your ideas, and you start to see who is with you and who's against you. If you never say anything about yourself, if you never open up, you don't know who's with you. But the secret in life is that if you ever want to be happy, want to be loved, and want to love, you need to live with open-mindedness, open heart. You cannot enjoy life being closed. The same walls that keep disappointments away from your life are the same walls that keep, happiness afar and away from you. Yes, when you do open yourself up with people and share your vision, your dream, your life, like Joseph did, you could be hurt. His own brothers reject him, even want to kill him actually. But vulnerability is the thing that comes along with being open to love. And to open yourself up to love is always accompanied with the possibility of getting hurt potentially. But that's the game of life. That's what you need to consider. That could happen. So the fact that somebody has hurt you and you got really wounded and you vowed yourself and you promised to yourself that I will never open myself up again, never trust a man, never trust a woman, never, different things we do. Well, that's not wise. The fact that Hitler was such an evil man, and I would say now all Germans are like that, would be so foolish. There are in every nation somebody who has done so many wrong things, among Jews, among Christians. So if you just generalize on the basis of one person's behavior, the character of a whole nation, or values of a group of people, that would be foolish to do. So we gotta live open-minded, and that's what Joseph does. Now, I've heard preachers say that he should have never shared this dream. What a proud man, what an immature young man to come up with, up to the brothers and, hey, you guys want to hear what I saw about you in my dreams? No. I think Joseph did the right thing. And again, when you do share the things God has given to you, you will discover who's with you and you will discover who's against you. But at least you discover who's with you, and that's all you need. And that's what Joseph finds out. So your enemies are sometimes as important as your friends, because take Goliath out of David's life and he is stuck as a shepherd boy and never becomes anything major. So take out the evil brothers from the life of Joseph, and he's never sold to Egypt, never found by Potiphar, never ends up being falsely accused by Potiphar's wife, never ends up in prison, never meets fellow prisoners, never interprets the dream, who one of them later reminds Pharaoh that there is a man in prison, a Hebrew, who can interpret dreams. And Joseph never meets Pharaoh, who he advises what to do in that situation, and ends up being the prime minister of Egypt, who later feeds his nation, his family, and keeps them alive and fulfills the mission of God and the dream God gave him. So the enemy played an important, vital role of that vision to come to pass. Sounds like devil who wanted to destroy Jesus, thinking that if he kills him, he just squares away everything that God wanted to do. Instead, he became the helper, assistant in the will of God. Now, I don't want to get into too much other details today, but I think Joseph had what I call a sense of destiny when he shared that dream with his brothers. He felt like God had a mission over his life, and he had a task and mandate to fulfill. So he shared that out of that. Yes, at the time it felt like everything turned haywire. Everything became crazy, upside down. But, in all of that, Joseph trusted God and kept hold of God. And God later kept Joseph. So this story is about trusting God and seeing how God navigated Joseph through this maze of life and eventually led him to become what he was supposed to be. So don't despise the current situation or the phase of life you're walking through, and don't think that your enemies can thwart the plan of God. They can actually help you to be catapulted to the place you need to be. So in all of that, just trust God, as Joseph did, and ended up eventually fulfilling the plan of God. You keep loving God and keep in faith and trust Him and see what He can do with a life that is given to Him.